we're now going to talk about something that we got a glimpse of earlier this morning, which is the games business. And we've got a power-packed panel here to talk about what the future of gaming looks like. So, Anirudh, let me get started with you. I mean, there's been a significant amount of money that's come the way of the gaming industry, especially in the last few years. But break up the market for us at this point in time. What's looking good? What's looking exciting? What's the kind of headroom for growth that you believe you see?
The phone essentially breaking through and creating distribution, which didn't happen earlier. We are not a console country. We are not a PC country, although in a few years we'll be bigger than most countries in PCs as well. So I think scale-wise, there's a lot of users. These users want to pay for entertainment. UPI has helped with that. Right? I think if you asked me, when I started my first company, Pocket Aces, I'm on to my second in Loco, what are some miracles I would like? When you play poker, you always hope that some cards come out, and you hoped that internet would become cheaper, and some payment mechanism would show up. Both miracles have happened in India. Right? So I think in terms of distribution, the rails have come down, and of course, for anyone starting up like us, AWS, etc., makes it very easy to scale your business. Now, of course, there are many varieties and forms of the video gaming sector, right? So you have kind of online video games, which can go all the way from a Candy Crush, which is a short form, hyper casual game, all the way to a BGMI/PUBG Mobile, which is a shooter. It can be, card games, it can be fantasy games. There's a lot of variety. And I think when you look at a $2 billion market growing at some 30-40% CAGR, people get surprised, but I'm not surprised given that, we have a $10 billion ad market on pretty boring content. So not a very difficult monster to disrupt.
And I had absolutely no idea, at least about a year or maybe a little bit more than that I would have spent so much of my time talking about game of skill versus game of chance. I play neither. I have zero interest or inclination to get into either. But because of the GST confabulation of whether it should be taxed at 28% or not taxed at 28%, and what should be the pool of capital that's actually taxed, that I spent a lot of my time actually looking at this business, but I'll get to the regulatory stuff in just a second. But Rajat, I want to understand from you as well, address the consumer, address the market, and how you've seen it change.
See, gaming is kind of one of the sunrise sectors. As he talked about it, we are exited 22 by 2 billion thing, and expected to be 8.5 billion by 27 there. We talked about engagement. An average gamer is spending almost 8.5 hours per week. That's the kind of engagement you will not get anywhere else in terms of consuming that content, whether it's any form of media you can track there. And it's purely, and now see that from a purely tailwinds perspective there. Penetration of smartphones is increasing. We talk about 500, 700, 900 smartphones there. We are looking at very exciting technologies on the horizon, with 5G coming in, metaverse coming in. The kind of immersive experiences that we cannot even imagine today will become a reality. A lot of those restrictions, even today, if you see these mass multiplayer games, one of the key constraints is you need a very, very fast, reliable network. And that's why they are not that popular on mobile. But with 5G coming in, when you have ultra high bandwidth with very high predictability, that purely unlocks everything to be running on mobile. All your heavy compute will move to cloud. That's where AWS as an enabling infrastructure comes in. So all the technology advancements that are going on is just a huge tailwind in terms of the way the consumer market will grow. And purely number of gamers will grow. Reports say last year, anywhere close to 500 million people played a game, whether it's in any of the categories that we mentioned. So it's a huge opportunity, a huge tailwind in terms of technology, in terms of the right environment there, and a lot of innovation in terms of companies you see the panel there. That kind of excitement in the industry was never there.
Yeah, so let's build on that excitement, Nishu, and I want to understand from you how you're gearing up within the company to cater to the tailwinds that both Anirudh as well as Rajat just spoke of. I mean, what's changing, what's new, what's different, what's exciting?
So, adding to the tailwind story, penetration of mobile phones, and then the accessibility of internet, and specifically high-speed internet promise with 5G coming in, And more so ever, the cloud native enablement with AWS and other cloud platforms, it just makes it easy to scale, to run your compute closer to the user rather than running on their own infrastructure. That tailwind is very strong. So now the kind of complex algorithms you can build, the kind of complex matchmaking we can execute while trying to ensure that user is always having fun while playing and it's fair for him. He's not pitted against someone who's super skilled compared to him. All those things are possible now. They're possible very fast. Now, in order to achieve it, few of the initiatives which we see across the industry of gaming, specifically around skilled gaming, is focus on the fair games, the algorithms, and there are systems being built around how to do right random number generation so that people can play the game fairly. There's a lot of focus on responsible gaming, so that if somebody wants to exclude himself, and how do we take away that part of habit formation from people so that they are aware of what is the social stigma, if there are any other challenges locally or there are certain policies enforced by government, people are able to adhere to that. Those are some major initiatives which are happening in the gaming industry.
And I'll get to some of those, but from a Rooster perspective, I also want to understand from you, we talked about some of the tailwinds. You just about alluded to some of the headwinds, which are largely regulatory in nature at this point in time. You've got many state governments acting proactively, taking a decision to ban certain kinds of games and so on and so forth. The GST issue continues to be an open-ended issue. There is no decision. So while we talk about the opportunities and the headroom for growth, add to the list on the other side as well, which are the challenges and the headwinds also that the industry faces today.
See, from our perspective, from where Loco and Rooter look at the industry, we represent the content side of gaming. So we are kind of not really affected by any of these regulatory challenges and things like that which are building up. For us, in fact, it's been extremely, government has made a very promising move in, recognizing esports as a part of the overall sports industry and the entire AVG sector, which is getting into gaming content creation. So, so I can't answer that question directly because I don't want to comment on that, but if I was to answer our perspective on the industry, this entire industry is built of three different kind of people. One is people who are playing games. It's a combination of casual, hardcore, or different kind of games, includes real money gaming. Then there is a separate set of people who are into esports, who are making a career in esports, building teams, becoming players. And then there is a very large part of this gaming audience which is consuming content. And if you look at anybody between 7 to 10 years old going up to 25 years old, people are consuming different kind of gaming content across different verticals. So we represent that part. And in that part, that is a pretty sizable audience out of the overall 450 million. So about 150 to 200 million people are consuming some kind of a gaming content across different platforms. And we see that as a very big opportunity because the next generation of creator ecosystem, creator economy is going to come out of gaming. Because as Anirudh said, the overall entertainment globally and even in India is moving towards people meeting more while playing or consuming games. They want to make a career in becoming either a content creator or an esports player. And that is where a very different industry is getting built in parallel, which I think is a great opportunity for India because India traditionally is a very big gaming market and gaming is traditionally a very big content market and gaming is going to contribute a lot to it in future.
And again, I want to talk about one of the opportunities and you just sort of alluded to that as well, that India has an advantage. It's a large gaming market. But what about the global aspiration at this point in time? Because this is a global business. Many companies are looking at that as an opportunity. Over the next 5 years, how do you see the landscape changing?
So, one thing which is happening very unique with India is that we are probably the first market which is mobile first in many, many ways. We are becoming a market through which a lot of gaming studios are launching their games for the first time. Krafton is launching one of their games, which is India is the first market, never heard of that before, and many, many such things will happen. So first and foremost, I think one part of the world is developing through a mobile gaming perspective. And India will become a playground of it, and many companies which will become successful in India will go on to play a very important role in many developing markets where mobile gaming will grow. So traditionally it has happened that from West things have flown down. in our case, particularly from a gaming perspective, and like many other industries, the companies which are getting built here will go on to take many more markets with our kind of a learning. And so that is the first thing. And I think the second thing which is happening, something that we are very excited to see, is a lot of games are getting built in India now. Lot of Indian games. And it might take 2-3 years for these games to come big or for them to be either successful or not so successful. But we will see a lot of games from India coming in, which is going to be a big contribution to the overall gaming economy.
Yeah, no, in fact, like on that theme itself, like within Games 24/7 ecosystem, we have a dedicated gaming studio, U-Games, where like it's a global first approach, where our primary audience is to build a game for a global market there. So it's not just that, okay, we'll build for India first and then take it global. There the approach is very, very significantly different. That in a hyper-casual space, can we come up with a very global product there? But the kind of bar that we've set for ourselves in terms of we'll only develop for 15 minutes, test it out. It succeeds, then we'll develop for D1. The way we monitor that is like, as Puneet in the morning talked about, that how fast can we experiment and how many experiments can we run there. And earlier the challenge was getting the right talent, and that situation has improved dramatically in terms of getting the right set of tech artists, right set of game designers there. And with that, I feel that like we are on the verge of where you will see a next big game from India. There, like.
So give us a sneak peek. When can we expect that from your stable?
So no, you guys.
What's going on with the experiments?
There are many, and one is like let's see, like hopefully we should have some good news soon there. But like those are experiments. Once we have the data conclusively to say that let's take it big, we will. And as Anirudh talked about capital, like we launched a 400 CR fund just to invest in the game and game enabling services there. So not only what we'll build in-house, but what we are saying is what we can participate in the ecosystem for that.
There, you've got the ecosystem right next to you in search of capital.
No, I mean, I think that's a really important point, is that when you talk about almost any sector in India, your top 2 companies are not profitable. Our top companies in gaming today are heavily profitable, and therefore they reinvest.